And so what's powerful is that no matter what your natural way of showing up is, we're able to unlock how does that become the foundation of everything else? How does that become the foundation for creating the other things that you need, the SOPs, the trainings, the quizzes, everything? How does that become the core of everything else? So you're able to ultimately get done what you need to do in a way that feels better and often ends up with a higher quality result in the process, all while still having your unique spark of humanity in that process. Because that's the key difference maker. If you're just asking AI to write the thing for you, to do the thing for you, and you're not showing up and you're not present in that process, you get hot garbage is what you get out of the process. Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to be diving into how you can transform meetings into an instant asset creation session where you produce polished, usable resources in real time without needing additional post-meeting work. This is something that I'm doing with my clients at this point, where half the time we're meeting together and actually creating the stuff that they want during the meeting using a fun, creative flow that makes it feel easier for everybody involved. The whole goal here is try and save time, produce more quickly, really get rid of the wasted time in between meetings, especially where you have to send something off to then wait for it to come back. And at that point, it's probably wrong and whatnot. And you have to rework it a couple times too. So that's the idea of what we're covering here. I got with me Charlie Madison. Charlie is from Referrals While You Sleep. We've been meeting together consistently to talk about a number of things. I've actually worked with Charlie in a similar way, doing some of this same kind of stuff with him too. So he's gotten to see this in action as well. But Charlie's going to serve as co-host like normal. He's going to ask some questions and hopefully play your end as the audience of getting the information out of me, out of my cold, dead hands.
Charlton Heston. Yeah. So I would love to know, what was the typical process before, which I've done with you. We just talked, right. Me and you did our first webinar, and I think we worked together for 2.5 weeks. It was around 8 hours. It was amazing. That was a long time ago. So if you want to add anything to what it was like before to how is it working now?
Yeah, historically, I have always struggled to do anything outside of a meeting. It's just part of my personality. I seem to need to be working with somebody else on something to actually get it done. And so I've leveraged assistance in the process to try and do it. But a lot of the time, if I'm doing work with people, it's just sort of part of the process that whatever we're accomplishing, I do it live on the call with them. So what's really changed is where historically I would meet with somebody, get the information that I need, and then use my own thought process to just type it out, to build the thing live and use the tools that I do that way. It's become a thing where now I'm able to still do that same process, but we're able to accomplish so much more in a shorter period of time because I'm able to leverage what we're talking about. That feels natural, right? Just having a conversation, asking questions, they answer, and then I use tools to be able to take those live conversations, pass them through AI, and actually create the assets that we're looking to create in the meeting very readily in a quarter to an eighth of the time, right? Where what used to take multiple sessions of multiple hours to get to one final product, now I've literally gotten to a point where it still takes time because you have to think through the things and there's still a human element here. But man, it's drastically more efficient and there's a whole lot less back and forth. It's happening live and dynamically. You're able to see the results of it a lot quicker. So you're actually able to iterate on things faster. It's been powerful for sure.
And what has been your client's response to this?
Yeah, one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm working with a team that's working on the recruiting set of stuff. And it includes a number of things, all the way from recruiting presentations and onboarding. And really we're doing like an overhaul of how they run their business as a whole. We're putting together documentation and everything. And so I'm interacting with nearly the entire team, anybody who's involved with actually the workings of this team. And everybody seems to be incredibly amazed at, we hop on, I ask questions, I take the transcript, throw it into some tools with some solid prompting that I do, and we immediately get back the thing that is what we just talked about, but now it's usable. And not just our conversation. And it literally happens on the call in front of their eyes. And so what I've been able to move from is leveraging my intelligence fully to take in the information, put it through my brain, through my fingers onto paper. I still leverage my intelligence, but it's mostly about directing a tool to do most of the work drastically quicker than I could, to take those inputs. I know how to guide people. I know how to leverage that in order to get the right information out. But literally, we're working through a handful of meetings to be able to completely overhaul a business really bringing what they see as the core of what makes them unique and powerful and how they approach things. We're extracting that and putting it back into a usable place for them to see, for them to deploy on, for them to have repeatable assets, playbooks, and presentations and everything that they need really quickly and really effectively. So it's been really powerful to just be able to move forward. We're doing a lot of the same work. It's just the quantity of what we're able to accomplish has drastically changed. We're very readily producing 10 times the output and useful assets and useful things that get to be deployed at the same quality or better than we were before, leveraging that time. And it just feels better in the process. We're creating through conversation rather than creating through having to sit down and force yourself to recreate and regurgitate ideas. So yeah, it feels so much better too.
Yeah. I assume as well too. I know for me, a lot of times the hardest part about getting new assets is actually putting them into play. I mean, I have to replace my previous assets. There's a habit there. And when I get something like our webinar a long time ago, it took a month to get it. And then once we got it refined, every time we reconnected, we had to go back to the beginning and get back into the original mindset to have the excitement for why we want to deliver it again. And so I imagine in the normal way, you'd have a conversation, you'd go walk in the woods and do your creative process, you'd bring it back and it was great. But there was a week or so, there was time where the excitement was gone. You had to be like, this is why the old version didn't work and why we're improving it. I'm imagining now it's ready and you've got the momentum. It's probably easier to just put into place the first time. What makes it easier the second, third, fourth? I'm assuming here, but have you seen that?
There's still definitely, like, anytime you step away from a project for a while, there's still some level of, you have to get yourself back into the mentality of what is the unique offer here? Why does it matter? All of that. But with AI, that's one of the things that's been powerful too, is sometimes you're able to take what you previously did and then put together real quick a one sheet for yourself to say, what is the unique offer here? Why is it powerful? Why is it compelling? What's the succinct way of describing this? And you're like, oh yeah, all right, cool. So we're there. And that's a whole lot easier than fully revisiting the thing. So that part becomes quicker. The other part is because you're working with AI, even if it takes me a little bit of time to get back there, AI is there right from the get-go. You can upload a presentation, upload some documentation, and it immediately understands what you're dealing with and why. Now, there might be a little bit of things around the fringes that it's a little bit off on, but it's mostly in that vein of it. It understands what you're conveying, why it matters, all of that, and what the unique value proposition is. And so that definitely helps. The other thing is we're able to leverage repetition. One of the things that I'm working on right now as part of this process of what I'm doing with this team is that we're assembling documentation for how they run each of their meetings. They have a sales meeting that they do, a team meeting. I'm not going to go over everything that they do, but they have these different meetings that, if you're familiar with something like EOS, it's that sort of idea of there's types of meetings that you run that are designed to move the business forward. And in this case, there's a combination of meetings that they're doing to run their business, but also to service agents that are on their team. And they all have a point and a purpose, but we're able to leverage a pretty consistent flow for what needs to be present in a meeting playbook. And so we're able to leverage a consistent recurring language around what's the key purpose of this meeting? What are some of the outcomes that this meeting is designed to achieve? And then what is the actual flow of the meeting? What's the storyboard of what this meeting is, where you can see these are the key components about how long they take and what you're looking to accomplish here and what's covered, all of that. Who does it? All of these things. And what's cool, we did that once, and now I'm able to take that context for how we're structuring it, feed it a new transcript and say, generate a new one of these based on this as like a template and a structure and what we're doing. And man, it's 9 times out of 10, literally that plus conversation, and we're most of the way there, depending on how nuanced the conversation was and all of that. But again, with AI in the process, I'm often able to take what was most of the way there, and then I pull it into a tool that lets me modify specific sections at a time, and we're off to the races. Just like you said, where normally I'd have to recreate the thing and rewrite it. There is a shortcut of saying, I know that I need to start with the overall goal and the overall picture. And so we answer that first. And then what are some of the key outcomes? But then you literally are sitting down, you're thinking through what are the key outcomes? And then inevitably, like later in the conversation, you're like, oh, you know what? This is actually a key outcome we should have covered. So we go back and we have to add it in. But now we're just talking through it. And we're not even necessarily thinking first list key outcomes. No, we flow through the conversation. Oh yeah, this is one of the big takeaways that we want people to have. And you just mention that in the flow of the conversation, and it magically ends up back in that right context for a human to quickly understand as they're going through this document. It makes that process fairly naturally, where if I wanted to have a conversation with somebody every single time I needed to convey what a meeting's about, they could take in that information in that kind of random way. But if I want to get somebody up to speed quickly, having it well laid out, well structured, where first things are first, they're laid out linearly, even though that's not the way that life tends to go. We could show up as humans to create, to be able to consume, and AI is the bridge between that. And it's been really powerful. And we're able to do all of it live during the meeting, because AI has gotten that good that the combination of how it can understand the transcripts plus the quality of the transcripts that are just happening as we're going, we're able to deploy that. And it's been really powerful.
Yeah. Walk us through how you're doing it. How's it work?
First off, the main thing that I do is that you have to have a tool that lets you get transcriptions in the right way. So to get the biggest advantage out of this, most meeting tools will give you some sort of transcription. Whether or not it's easy to access is another question. Zoom does do a live transcription at this point. So if you're meeting in Zoom, you can get a live transcription. But I found that it's kind of hard to get to and to copy and paste. Literally just that as a simple thing of being able to say, can I copy and paste this easy during the call while the call's still happening? That part is hard in Zoom from what I've seen. That's an easy thing for them to fix at some point, and hopefully they do. Google Meet's another one that I use. That one does a decent job of the transcriptions too. I found that it's not as good live, like you're generating the transcription and you get it after the fact, but it's not as good live. Again, all of these things, me even saying this is going to date this a little bit, but for anybody who's listening right now, this is what I'm experiencing. So the tool that I really like that gives me the live transcriptions so that during the meeting I could do this well is Fireflies. So Fireflies you could use for free. You would install an extension, get access to it, and then during your meetings, you'll actually be able to pull up a pane where you could see the live transcription as it's happening. You could search through that transcription, you could copy portions, copy the whole thing. But that as a thing is like the key thing that makes a difference, because if we want to do it during the meeting, we need that transcription as immediately as we're talking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. So then after that, then we're taking that transcription and we're actually needing to feed it into a model that is able to handle it. What all models are you currently familiar with in terms of potential options? So if you had a transcript, what are some of the models that you're familiar with?
Claude, ChatGPT. Those are the only two that I've played with.
Yeah, and there are more. Those are definitely going to be the two most popular. And I think for most people, ChatGPT is what they're most familiar with. Some other models that people may or may not be using, Perplexity is another one. There's Pi. You may or may not be using built-in models in and stuff like that. Those are going to be pulling in OpenAI's GPT, GPT-4, GPT-4o, that sort of stuff. So it's the same model. But at a basic level, yes, most people are typically either using ChatGPT. They may or may not be using other things. If they're using other things, Claude or Perplexity are starting to come into the mix. And maybe you're using something else. But what I've found is that the model that you pull something like this into really matters. I have not had good experiences quickly and readily being able to leverage anything but Claude. And very specifically, Claude 3.5 Sonnet currently is what I'm using that's working well for this, because it's able in reality to understand a really big token window. And essentially what that means is it's the amount of information that it can understand in one go, where it meaningfully understands the nuance and different points that are happening. So Claude is uniquely situated to be able to do that well at this point. Over time, other tools may or may not get better at that. And I found that it doesn't even matter anything over about 15 minutes. And I really want it to be in Claude as opposed to something else. And sometimes even shorter than that. ChatGPT could do a good job with shorter stuff. It depends on how nuanced they need it to be. And I'm sure some of their better models, they've released their O1 preview model. That one's like a lot slower. It could go through and iterate over stuff a bit more. It could work well, but Claude is the main one that I'm leveraging for this because it can understand it so well. And that level of understanding makes a difference for it to be able to do some of what I described. When you're flowing naturally in a conversation, it's able to pick out the different pieces and put them into the right spot. And it's able to take your free-flowing thought and boil it down to the key points that really would matter in documentation like this, or in a presentation, or in a sales page, or in an email, or whatever, right? It's able to take that, keep the tone and structure of what you're looking for, but reflow it into what you're looking to do. And so that typically is my flow. So I'll start with the transcript, I'll pull it into Claude, and it depends on what I'm doing for whether or not I get more advanced than that. Have you played much yet with Claude projects and artifacts?
I use those all the time. Yeah.
Those are definitely my favorite when it comes to this sort of thing. Like I just described, I'm working with a consistent client and we're working on a bigger overarching project. And so I will, in these cases, like I'll create a project for that. I might upload some foundational documents that give Claude a bit more understanding, maybe show some templates, that sort of thing. And then that lets me build on the process overall. But even aside from that, that's really if you know in advance that you're going to be working on something, you could set it up as a project and start building it out that way. That gives Claude more context to what you're doing. But even without that, what I love about what Claude's able to do is that I upload a transcript, I give it a bit of a prompt of what I want it to do with it. It gives you this view called an artifact, which is a separate document that you could just look at it on its own. It gives you the ability to easily download it, sometimes publish it. You can run code in there and that sort of thing. And that's a little bit more advanced than what we need to do for this. But Claude works really well for that. And then knowing that those things are happening, really that makes the rest of my job incredibly easy, which is just during the meeting, I get to just show up and have a conversation in order to get the information out. You want to hear a bit more about how that works?
Yeah, please.
So typically going into the meeting, I could get them to say, what does the meeting currently look like? And that's often like being able to prompt something like that to say, how can I make it easy for you to just show up, for you to just start the conversation, to get the momentum going? Because once you get the conversation going, you could riff on it and start massaging and getting the information out and saying, here's what it currently looks like. Now maybe start asking the question, what would that look like if it was different? What would you change? What would you do differently? And now that you're looking at this, what would that look like? And so what's cool about that, though, is I could start with whatever feels easy. I could just be asking questions and like, what are you currently doing is very often a great place to start. And then from that, the combination of whoever's on the call, we could give feedback. We could say, we're doing it this way. It's like, how do you feel about that? Is that the way that you want it done? Do you want to do it differently? Would you change anything? And we could talk it out live and just keep going through the process. And then by the end of that time, we've talked about what's going on now, what we would change, all of that. And we're able to take that transcript and throw it back in and say, all right, now generate the presentation based on the changes that we discussed. Now generate the meeting playbook. Now generate the recruiting presentation. Now generate the sales page, whatever we're working on. Typically, I tend to be focused on one thing that we're working on. But we're able to essentially live edit it through the conversation. And then we get back that initial draft of what that looks like. Now, in your experience, have you done anything similar to this in terms of, you've done it with me, but even on your own, have you done this process yourself? What's your experience for how that typically comes back?
The response from Claude or something?
Yeah.
So I've studied from you a lot. And before working with you, it was unusable. I actually have a project. Now, my stuff takes a lot longer, but I've had some good results taking a project, getting some response. The actual, if it's a presentation, I'm terrible at converting them into presentations. It takes a lot of massaging. But I see I can get a pretty good outline is what I can get.
Yeah. And what I found is no matter what I do, even with doing the transcripts, even doing all of that, typically it's still 80 to 90 to 95% of the way there. And so my next step is very often that I'm taking that and I'm pulling it out of Claude because I really don't like iterating over things in Claude or ChatGPT because by nature, when they built these models, one of the things that they did is they figured out the way that you make this feeling of human creativity is you tell it not to repeat things, not to do it the same way. That's part of what makes it feel creative is that it's saying things in different ways. But it also causes this problem of, I only want you to change this one thing, and yet I ask for that one change, and it changes everything. And I'm like, you just ruined this part, but sure, you got this part better. And I don't actually have this in my notes here that I'm talking through here. But the next thing that I do is I actually pull it into a tool that's not even intended for this. It's a tool called cursor.sh. I think it's cursor.com now. And the tool is actually really cool. I think you've actually started using it a bit, I think, for its intended purpose at times, right?
Yeah. Me and my team use it for programming.
Exactly. That's what it is. It's a tool that's designed for coding. It's designed to, like, you have a coding project and it's able to understand all the context. So it's able to make updates to your code intelligently. And I have used it that way, but I actually use it in a unique way, which is I open text files or markdown documents in order to edit them in Cursor because it has this unique ability to be able to select text and then regenerate just that. Now, this isn't new, but Cursor you could use for free just with the APIs. I'm able to leverage it for that way. And it works really well with Markdown because Markdown is just essentially really simple coding on top of plain text documents. Right? Really simple, simplified HTML basically is what Markdown is. And so it's really able to understand all that context, and you get back a thing that's formatted, and that formatting helps. Anyway, that's what I use. Now, there are a number of tools that do this, some paid, some free. I think the most popular one that has this document editor view is Jasper. That's a tool that would do this as well, where you can take a document in and just sort of re-massage a certain spot, a certain area. So that's another good tool as well. But I have found that it's really important that once I get something most of the way there, I got to take it into something else that lets me just work on and refine a section at a time. Now, I'm excited. I haven't played with it yet, but ChatGPT is actually supposed to be rolling out. I don't even know if I have access to it yet, but a new feature called Canvas that is similar to Claude's projects and artifacts. And they are supposed to give you the ability to iterate on specific sections, but I don't know if it works the way that I'm looking for, where I want it to make the live edit just to that section. Anyway, so I'll be playing with that and reporting back. But either way, working through a document and zeroing in on just the areas where it's wrong, the areas where it's off, and being able to give it direction to say, this specific section, add this idea, or change this, or reword this, or emphasize that. That becomes the other secret to really doing this effectively, because that's where you tend to get tripped up, where it's like AI will get you most of the way there, but you're like, now I have to spend a lot of time massaging it. And you do to a degree, but when you're working with the right tools that let you zero in on the right section and you slowly rebuild the document into what you need, that's where you get that extra polish, I think, in the quickest process. So what's cool is now at this point, I'm doing this live on meetings where you've seen me do this. You see me flow through this process where we generate the first thing, I take it into Cursor, and then we start reworking sections to make it more clear, make it have the right structure, make it have the right wording, etc. But we end up with a thing it's ready to go, and I don't have to do work after the meeting in order to get the thing ready, and we're able to see live while we're on the call what exactly we created. And I've done it because I have to. I won't sit down and do the work most of the time outside of the meeting. And so I've had to learn how to do it during the meeting. But what AI has really unlocked is that now that process is drastically quicker compared to what it used to be. And the end result is drastically more effective. And it's been game changer for what we're able to create, what we're able to accomplish just literally live during these meetings, and just how it feels so much easier and more fun because it's just a conversation that naturally results in those documents that we're looking to create.
What are the types of assets and documents that can be made with this?
Yeah, so far, you're at least able to get yourself most of the way on nearly anything, right? So nearly anything that you might need. So you could generate the video scripts, you could generate your written documentation, SOPs, articles. You could do this process to write a book live together, talk through a concept and start essentially jointly creating the chapters of a book. You could really do a lot with this. The things that I haven't seen it be able to do well yet is it doesn't do layout work well. So if I'm looking to create something that needs that final polish of design and layout, whether that be actually getting something into slides for a presentation or maybe laying out a print piece or something like that, I haven't seen anything that's able to do that great yet. We're getting there, though. I haven't played with a lot of the Adobe tools, but Adobe is starting to be able to do some of this as well. And so what I typically do is I typically think through, first and foremost, what are the words that need to exist? Because it does all of that really well. If I could think through what are the words that I'd want covered on a presentation, how would I display this on a slide just via the words themselves? It's able to do that well. And then I could take that and use other tools like Beautiful.ai or Gamma.ai and potentially build out a presentation from that and make that process quicker. Typically going from words to design, there's a bit of a time suck that you just, from what I've seen, I can't avoid yet, at least if I want it to be clear and coherent. The tools aren't dialed there yet. And then on the print and the layout stuff, what I typically do is I still deploy designers where I come armed with, here's all the copy. I need you to put the paint on it. I need you to lay this out well. And that's what's been working well on that front. So we're not able to do everything yet. I think we'll get there. I think the tools are coming along. And some of it might even be possible and just may not be stuff that I've played with yet. I could see that being possible. But right now, it's definitely doable, definitely very simple, can be simple to at least deploy on the writing portion. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In the past, you would have to have the call, spend however much time afterwards getting the words, having another call, reviewing the words with the client, making sure everything's
Right.
good, really modifying it there. Maybe have to do that a few times and
Right.
then send it to the designer. Now you've got
Right.
one call, you get the words, and you send it to the designer.
Exactly.
That sounds like a better
Yep.
process.
Somewhere we have to find the time and motivation to actually create the thing. And typically, when it works that way, you lose things in the process mentally. You have to revisit something, bring it back. And by shortening that cycle and going from we're talking about it to it's just created and done, a lot less is missed, right? We're really able to see we did this, we got it done. We're able to just really go from project to project a lot quicker and a lot more effectively. And what's powerful about that is a lot of what I'm doing, it could be like, it's a process that could be learned. It could be deployed with other teams. It could be deployed in other ways. The thing that you'd be missing, you don't get my unique perspective if you're not doing it with me. You don't get the way that I see things and think about the world and all that. But the basic concept of being able to go from talking something out, pulling that transcript into AI, pulling it out of AI, massaging it with other tools that you can massage pieces on. That could be done by anybody. So it's really a powerful process to be able to think about. How can we make there be less work that happens after the meeting and accomplish more of the work that needs to be done during the meeting? I think that a lot of people would just find that you get a lot more out of everything that you're doing, and the process just feels so much better too.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I love the idea of it happening that quickly. And of
Right.
course, if they're part of your AMP Intel,
Right.
they actually get your prompts, which I do, which is why
Right.
when you ask how my results are, I'm like, yeah, my results are pretty good. They're not this fast. And
Right.
then they get access to your thinking too. And for companies that you've worked with, what's the biggest benefits that they've got?
To save time on what would previously take a lot of time, to shore up processes that maybe were inconsistent before, make them consistent, and to really find that unique blend of how can I show up in ways that feel easy and naturally for me. And this is the proverbial I, right? So how can you show up, Charlie? How can people show up in whatever way feels easy? And it could be that the way that feels easy is writing. It could be that the way that feels easy is just talking something out. It could be that you and I tend to find it easy to show up together and interact as a way to create. But that's not the case for everybody. Some people, they need to just be by themselves and maybe they think out loud, or they're by themselves and they write. And that's the way that they flow most naturally. And so what's powerful is that no matter what your natural way of showing up is, we're able to unlock how does that become the foundation of everything else? How does that become the foundation for creating the other things that you need, the SOPs, the trainings, the quizzes, everything, right? How does that become the core of everything else? So you're able to ultimately get done what you need to do in a way that feels better and often ends up with a higher quality result in the process, all while still having your unique spark of humanity in that process. Because that's the key difference maker. If you're just asking AI to write the thing for you, to do the thing for you, and you're not showing up and you're not present in that process, you get hot garbage is what you get out of the process.
Generic slop.
Generic slop, that's what you call it. Yeah. And you get something that definitely, it's like this thing that has all the markings of technically it's right and correct, but any of what makes it unique, anything that makes it feel real, anything that makes it feel like it's actually what's going to help somebody is not present if you're not bringing yourself into it. And so this process is one of those great ways. It's got all that wealth of context of the transcript for your meetings, that process, and being able to do it. And so that's really what we're teaching people is how do you still show up so that your unique humanity is present, but still leveraging AI to make the process drastically more effective, drastically more productive, drastically higher quality and quantity at the same time. And really being able to break that iron triangle. The iron triangle, if you're not familiar, you could have it fast, high quality, or cost. You could have cost, speed, or quality, but you can only pick two. That's the iron triangle. This is one of those things where you start being able to, like, things that previously you would sacrifice on quality in order to get it fast at a low cost, sacrifice on speed to get quality and cost, or you'd spend a lot to get something fast and high quality. Now, AI is making more and more things where it's like previously it was expensive, but now it's cheap to get fast and high quality. And so that's what we're unlocking for people is that process applied to creating your assets, deploying on your process, leveraging your marketing, your back office, everything. We're just improving the whole beast in the process of leveraging these concepts.
Yeah, I love that. It really does because you've got multiple team members now. And if an organization's wanting to start adopting this system, what's the first steps they should take to implement it?
The first steps, just at a basic level to implement these ideas, is to make sure that you're recording your meetings, that you're getting these assets. So do that, because whether or not you decide to work with me to help you deploy it, that's what gets you the library of stuff to then be able to start turning into whatever you need to. So if you're not already recording stuff, start recording whatever you can. And then after that, if you want to make that process easier and quicker and more effective, you can reach out to me, zachhammer.me. Go there, find the contact page, reach out, find out about what we're up to, what we're doing at the AMP Intel project, and reach out. We've got a group of people that are meeting together consistently, unlocking this stuff. Whether you're looking for low-key engagement, where maybe you're looking to leverage your time effectively and show up with a group of people who are already doing this, or whether you need some more one-on-one attention, we've got different ways of deploying on that and helping you no matter what you're looking to do. So definitely reach out there. That's a great place to get started. And either way, that's where you can find out more information about what we're up to, courses, one-off trainings, all that sort of stuff. So zachhammer.me is the best place to go.
I love it. Come join us, hang out with me. It's just the massive increase that I've had over the last 3 or 4 months implementing this. It's amazing what we're able to get. This is a little testimonial. The results we're getting with our small little team. There's 4 of us, and we're really being able to produce the output of giant 100-people teams. And it's just getting better. Instead of having to hire 4 more people, we hop on a call with you and figure out how to do more with our current 4 people.
Exactly. That's part of what's amazing. I think right now, a lot of people are looking at maybe the idea of cutting team and cutting people on their team. And typically, I don't encourage that if you can avoid it. If you got anybody on your team that's not pulling their weight, then you might need to. But man, if you got good people on your team, really what AI is unlocking right now is being able to say, how do we really leverage what they're capable of and get them in their zone of genius so that they could really be making a big impact in your business? Because when you find the right people, you can leverage that massively. And it really is that each individual person is able to 3 to 10x what they previously were capable of doing. And when you look at that across yourself and your entire team, the difference that makes is it's hard to comprehend. It's hard to see how it's actually showing up. It's hard to anticipate what that looks like in your team. It is more what I would say. When you see it, it's really clear and powerful. But the difference that it makes it's probably unlike anything else that you've experienced. It's really powerful.
That's it. Humans, we're not trained to work with exponential results, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Once you see it, you're like, wow.
But yeah, if you want to experience that, I definitely recommend checking out what we're up to at zachhammer.me. And we'd love to have you. If not, hey, best of luck to you. Keep consuming the content. Keep learning from us in this capacity from this show and what we're up to. We're glad to help people in whatever way we can. But if you want to dive deeper, if you want to get more of that direct help, that's where you could go to start learning more about how you can figure out what we're doing, get that implemented, steal everything that I've learned and deploy it in your business and take the shortcut to get those results. So there you go. That's the process that we're deploying on right now in order to leverage meetings, in order to get assets created, get work done live on meetings rather than having to go through that typical old process of lots of iteration over meetings after meeting and returning to things and all that. We're cutting that out and getting stuff done on the meetings, which has been great for us. There you go. Thanks so much, Charlie, for coming out, walking us through that information. Hopefully people find that valuable. And otherwise, until the next time, we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Growth Hacker Show. Remember, done is better than perfect. To turn the marketing ideas and tactics you just learned into real growth for your real estate business, visit us at realestategrowthhackers.com. If you like this episode, consider sharing it with another real estate professional who could benefit from the information. Or maybe you'd like to subscribe to the show to never miss an episode. You can leave a rating or review on iTunes with your biggest takeaway, helping this show to reach and help more people just like you. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.